Hey, it's Jack. So I just finished this awesome conversation with Seth Quental. He's a new broker down in Fall River in Massachusetts. And he asked me all sorts of questions like, how do you start your agency? How do you recruit your agents? Do you need a physical location? What about a CRM? All sorts of questions. What you should be providing to an agent when they come on board with you. So many great questions. How do you brand your agency? And we wanted to share this information with you. So fantastic questions from Seth. Let's get into it.
All right. So Jack, the first question I had, you're an experienced broker. So who do you turn to if you have a question that you don't know the answer to?
I think that's a really good question. And I think as a new broker, you definitely need somebody. I serve for that with people that take my broker class. They always have the ability to call me up and ask me questions and say, I usually get most questions in the first like 6 months of you being a broker. But myself, I was really fortunate that I did a transaction with somebody like a decade ago, and we became friends here in Plymouth. It was a rental, and what I came to learn is that he was just about to get his broker license as I was. So we got our licenses as brokers that same summer, and we've become good friends since. And now when I don't know something, I call my friend Rodney, and Rodney, what do I do? And it's so nice to be able to rely on somebody in confidence. To be able to, because it's a shame when sometimes you don't know something. Of course, you don't want to tell your agents that you don't know.
Right. And, I've run into that too myself, and there's no blueprints.
The buck stops with me.
Right.
And, so sometimes if I don't know the answer to the question, either on a transaction that I'm working on or a transaction that they're working on, I'll say that. I'll say, let me double check that. And I'll either research it on my own, or in the end, if I don't know, I'll call my buddy Rodney. And,
right, that's good.
He basically does the same thing. And, sometimes I'll call him, about an issue like once a month, or maybe it could be months before I ask him for more. But it's a constant, ongoing relationship that we've just been able to have that in confidence, and it's been a huge help. And I do that for the students that take my broker class. And again, usually in the first 6 months, you get more calls, but I still get broker students who call me from that graduated and became a broker, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And they're like, Jack, this thing happened. What do I do? I think it's probably one of the most important things that you can do, whether it's somebody locally in your town, but that kind of gets a little tricky because you want to have that cone of purity where that you're completely confidential, and then you might be competing against them, so it could get a little sticky that way. But I think it's a really important relationship, no matter how you kind of figure out how to do it. You got to be able to ask somebody some advice. Now, if you're a realtor, which I'm not, here in Massachusetts, there is the legal hotline where you could call the legal hotline. You could ask them. That's another option.
And I use that for myself too. That's a great resource.
Or, maybe you're friendly with a real estate attorney in your town, and maybe you could call up, Larry the lawyer and run something by him, and he'll give you a free 10-minute consultation, maybe because you keep on referring clients to him, so. There's a number of different ways. It would be best if you're going to be working with a lawyer. It would be best that it would also be a real estate attorney who is also an attorney broker.
Yeah.
Which not all attorneys are.
Yeah. So that's great. I think it's been like super helpful talking to you, and it's good to bounce ideas off your peers and other people in the same position. I know you started your brokerage, and there's really no blueprint, on how to run a brokerage and, the ins and outs. And a lot of it's like experience and things you figure out as you go. That legal hotline's been great for me when I have like a very specific question and somebody's asking, what's the law with this? Or what can I do? And that's been a great resource for myself.
I mean, that's one of the nice benefits of having the membership, but it's certainly not the only place to get that information.
Right. So on to my next question. Do you, as a broker, when you started out, was it your goal to get new agents? Do you have any methods for recruiting agents? Because, you know, obviously this is part of your livelihood. Did you focus on doing deals yourself, or did you want to get into, you know, recruiting agents?
So the answer is both. I've always done some deals of my own for the entire time that I've had my agency, which is going on almost 10 years now. And some of those deals are just from clients that, I mean, I just can't say no to, right? Like they're people that almost all of my transactions are from people that have known and liked me for a long time.
Right.
So I don't do hardly any deals that are cold deals like from internet leads. Like that's just not the nature of my business. If I might have more deals if I did it that way, but that's just not the way my practice works.
Right.
And so I've always kind of worked two tracks, right? I'm a huge believer in multiple revenue streams. And as a broker, I think it's important for you to be constantly doing transactions, because only by constantly doing transactions can you actually keep up with not only certain etiquette things that change about transactions, which also are varied by geography a little bit, but also subtleties in the market. If you're just shuffling paper as a broker, you're detached from what's going on the ground.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and so I think doing at least some transactions as a broker is a healthy thing so that you understand the marketplace as best as possible.
Right. And as far as like, you know, getting agents on board at Jack Gately Real Estate, is that something that happened over time? Did you seek those agents out? Like, what would you recommend for somebody, you know, starting their own firm? Just heavily focus on your own leads or own deals, or kind of get your name out there and like try getting agents, you know, create a team?
Well, for me, finding the first 5 agents was very difficult. And then getting to 10 was also very difficult.
Yeah.
But once you kind of get to 10 or 12, then that's kind of like a proof of concept in a way.
Right.
It's much easier to hire the 14th agent than it is to hire the 4th agent.
Right. Yeah.
Because, you know, they look at your agency and they're like, okay, you hired a dozen or so people.
You're more
can't be that
established.
bad.
Right. Yeah.
But to hire for them to take a leap of faith when you've only got 3 agents or whatever, that's tougher for sure. So
Right.
it is got a kind of like a snowball effect. If I was doing it now, and I'm going to give you my advice about what I would do today. And this actually advice that I should take more of myself, to tell you the truth. But you're from Fall River or the South Coast. Let's
Correct.
just take that example. If I was you, what I would do, and I'd spend a number of hours doing this like almost every day. I would, instead of hiring someone to cold call, because I don't know if you get that from time to time. You get cold calls from brokers asking if you want to join their agency. What I would do is build brand, and you could do that with some content, but I would be 25% content and 75% comments. Listen to this strategy. So over in South Coast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or whatever, there's probably a boatload of agents out there that are posting about their new listing or whatever it is they're posting about, something about real estate. If you're the one that comments on all those posts and have some content of your own, if you're the commenter, you then expose yourself and your brand to all of these agents that work for other agencies.
Right. Yeah. I've noticed that too. And I've actually done that, not even thinking like of, you know, that's the goal. And it's actually like a side effect. You start liking people's posts, you start commenting on people's posts. Now you're fresh in their mind, you know, and sometimes their own brokerages don't even do that, you know?
Right. So even if you interject into every conversation in your geographic area, wherever your agency operates, whether it's, you know, the South Boston condo market or whatever it is, and you're the broker and you have this tiny little agency over on Broadway in South Boston, and you start commenting on every agent's post in South Boston condo market, they're all going to know you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
fairly soon. And, you know, and if it's just simply like, hey, Agent Amy, this listing looks awesome. Love what you did with the photographs. Or if Agent Amy says something about something in the news relative to real estate, you could interject your 2 cents on her post. Again, on whatever platform it happens to be, Instagram, whatever. And come on, I mean, we all love interaction on our post. You put something on Instagram and you're just waiting for someone.
Waiting for that little red blip, you know, that little notification.
So you can get the endorphin rush. And whoever does that, you know, now Agent Amy's going to click on your profile and she's going to be, oh, Seth's a broker. And, oh, look at his comp plan is right in his bio there. Oh, that's a better comp plan that I'm getting. Seth seems very positive and very helpful. And let me go look at his posts. Oh, Seth's up on the news. Seth knows what he's doing. It's a small little agency, but you know, I'm not too happy with my agency right now. I got to finish off these deals. You know, and I drop Seth a DM and ask him if we can have a cup of coffee later this month.
Right. Smart. Yeah, that's great strategy. I like that. And so when I started Waypoint Realty, I was debating, you know, obviously virtual is a big thing, virtual offices, and starting out, you know, you don't have a strong foundation of agents, you know, so I figured low overhead, virtual is the way to go, you know. Is virtual our virtual offices the new way to go? What are the pros and cons with having a virtual office versus like a brick and mortar type office? Well, what are your thoughts on that?
I think, you know, what we're seeing with EXP, how many EXP real estate offices do you know of?
Right.
None.
None, yeah.
They don't exist. So this has been accelerated by the whole pandemic situation. But even before that, we were moving towards, with the technology of e-signature and whatnot, of a virtual situation. So right out my window, I'm on the 3rd floor here in downtown Plymouth, America's hometown. And out my window on Main Street is a real estate office. And since I've been here, one real estate company has moved out and another has moved into the same space. But no matter what company has been there, there's nobody that goes in there.
Interesting. Very interesting.
And that's the same for all of the real estate agencies in my town or your town. Mm-hmm. They're just billboards. I mean, and you could argue that it's a very effective billboard for the brand, but you also have to realize that if you have office space like that, who's going to pay for that? And the answer is it's going to come out of the agent's pay through a lower commission split.
Right. And I've gone to networking events and I've asked them, you know, do you have a physical office? And I asked them, you know, how often do they go there? And they're like, well, I actually haven't been, or I go like once a week or once a month, you know? And I'm like, well, what's the point? Like, is that really what's keeping you there at the brokerage? You know, what benefit is that to you, you know? And some people, I guess, you know, you can argue both sides. You know, some people are like, all right, well, I sit in the office and, you know, we get people walking in all the time, you know? So I guess it depends on location and whatnot. But I think starting out for me, especially, it was smarter to go with a virtual office, you know, because like you said, who's paying for that?
Let's put in one caveat here is that there is a legal requirement that you have to have a regular place of business.
Right.
And so it cannot be a post office box. Mm-hmm. So if you want to do a co-working space or something like that, that would be fine. Right. But it just can't be a, you know, UPS store.
Right. Yeah, and I've done that in the past with like, I think the spaces is a big one for virtual offices and stuff like that. Someone that can accept mail and legal documents and stuff like that.
It's got to be a place where the regulators, heaven forbid, if they want to show up and meet with you, it's not a phone booth. So there's that. If you want to spend money now on an office, or you think you want to spend money as a marketing because you think you're going to get visibility out of the real estate office, I would think if you want to get visibility for your real estate brand, I think you want to spend money on Main Street. And by Main Street, I mean Facebook.
Right.
With ads.
Okay.
Or Google ads, or, if you're getting an office to get visibility for your brand, I think there's a lot of other ways to do that. And the number one way to be advertising online.
Right. Yeah. And that kind of goes,
what you want to do.
And that, and so this question I've been asked before, and I think you've touched upon it in another video. And I've been asked, would it benefit an agent to work for a smaller firm or a larger firm?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and I think you were asking a new agent, right? Were you asking a new agent or any agent?
Right.
I think the number one question, if I could just kind of dodge your question rudely, but I'm going to ask it. I'm going to flip it back to you and ask you. It depends upon what you want to accomplish as an agent,
right?
And also, and I say this as a brokerage owner, I don't think in the world that we live in now, I don't think it really matters what brokerage you work for to the end consumer. It might matter to you as an agent with your commission split and the relationship you have with your broker and the support you get and all that stuff. But the way that we work now, it does not matter really whether Sally works at Coldwell Banker or Sally works at Century 21. Right. Doesn't matter.
Because it's all about the agent nowadays, and that's what I tell people is it's like it's whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever works for you, whether it's your broker's personality or maybe they do offer something that you like, but ultimately it comes down to the agent and the work you put in.
You see, everything has gotten flatter. The friction to enter I'll be 55 at the end of this month. And so I can go back 20 years or 30 years or 40. And the world that we live in now is so filled with so much opportunity to develop a individual brand for a single person, as compared to 20, 30, 40 years ago, where if you wanted to be a lawyer or a dentist or a real estate broker or insurance salesman, or you wanted to be the guy that carved the hand carved sign store, or whatever you wanted to do as a small business person, you probably needed to rent a particular place in some type of downtown area, right. In your town or your city. And your whole business was physically based. For those of you young whippersnappers out there, this is hard to conceive, because right now, if you want to run a retail business, you can do that from your dorm room or your mom's basement. You don't need permission to get a particular physical location. You can do this from almost anywhere where you can stock the product.
Right.
And so there's so much opportunity right now that I think, especially people that are a little bit younger, if you're 15, 20 years younger than I am, this is just the way it seems to you. But let me tell you, from us olds, this is like a world of difference from 30 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think a lot of things are changing, and pretty soon, I don't think there will be, a lot of brick and mortar offices, because you got some of these big wig offices that are expanding and, swallowing up agents, and, everything's online nowadays, So another question I had, what kind of resources, if any, should a broker provide their agents?
Well, I think there are some physical resources for that matter. I definitely think signs are, there we go, signs, there it is over there. I think definitely signs are still critically important, that your rank and file agents aren't going to have those signs.
Mm-hmm.
A business card template, I think, is very important. So we have a printer nearby that has our business card template. We don't pay for their cards, but we have it all designed for them, sitting there waiting for them. I think there's at least two things. Let's say I had a little note here. I wanted to make sure. Two things that have kind of gone by the wayside recently or in the last couple of years, and that's websites. Nobody is going to your website. Zillow has already won that battle. And so if you're not providing agent websites, that used to be a big thing 10, 15 years ago or whatever. I don't think it matters at all now.
Yeah.
Also, it has now become normal to run your business on Gmail. There was a time 10 something years ago where that was weird. It was like, well, don't you have a company email? What's wrong with you? Yeah. And now it's become normal to run your business on Gmail. So we don't provide company emails, and there's been no friction on that. So the number one thing I think is advice. It's advice for your agents. That's the number one thing. There are some simplistic things, signs, business cards, but I think the most important thing that you have to provide is advice. There is a huge trap out there, and I've talked about this on my channel before, about the CRM or the database.
Yeah.
And when the agency is providing the database and you as the agent pour all your names into it, you're basically giving them your database. And when you do that, you are your list. Why would you ever share that with anybody?
Right.
And so I think that's a huge trap that a lot of agents fall into. And so I do not provide my agents with a CRM. They can get Google Sheets for free, and understand that when you as an agent, you use the company's CRM, you're giving them the most important asset that or one of the most important assets that you have, which is the data.
Right. And I offered a CRM, just to have if agents want to use it. But, I don't even really use one for myself. I mean, like you said, Google Sheets, that's plenty. That works great for me, and I just put all my stuff in there. Or, I'm still a big fan of pen and paper. I got plenty of filing cabinets, and I just keep hard copies of everything. Exactly.
That's how I run my business. Actually, every day I start with a to-do list. Very old-fashioned. I start with a pen,
right?
And a piece of paper.
I actually just made one yesterday.
I make one every day. And I run my business, with a notebook to start with, and all my documents from my transactions I run through Google. I run almost the entire business through Google. All the document saving and stuff like that. We don't have any file folders or anything like that.
Right.
But for the day-to-day operation, I just find pen and paper to be so much easier when it comes to making lists of things to do, when it comes to brainstorming.
Yeah.
I'm still and I just have a pile of notebooks that
I got a pile around me right now. I have notes everywhere.
I just have one, and then when I'm filled with it, it goes in the archive, so to speak.
Right. So my next question, what should broker agent relationships be like in the way of professionalism? Is it better to be like buddy with your agents, or is it important to establish like some kind of boundary there?
I think it's important to understand, and from a broker point of view, that agents do come and go. And when agents leave, I get sad. It hurts my feelings.
Yeah, of course.
But I also understand it's business, and people have different things that go on with life that happen. on the other hand, like I do have several agents that have been with me for a long time, and I'm incredibly fond of them. And when something bad happens in their personal life, like that bothers me. And I care for them.
Because you're human, you know?
Yeah, right. Well, they're theoretically right. And but I also, you know, have had the situation where I've had things happen where I was like, wow, I don't think they treated me right. Right. So, but in the end, it's just business. It hurts. I'll share one situation that kind of hurt my feelings. Maybe this shows me as somebody that's weak, and I don't know, but I had an agent, did her first deal. This happened this year, and we were on the phone helping her make this happen. And she closed it, and she came by right here to pick up her check. And I was like, here's your check. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Let's do it again. She brought her friend, all happy and smiles, and, you know, high fives. And so I'm going to go out to lunch. You go take your friend out to lunch. Have a good time. There's a lot of restaurants right down the street here. And an hour later, she sends me an email saying she quit.
Oh, no.
So I was like, is that a generational thing, or?
I think so. That's got to be. That would hurt me too. And that's, that's particularly odd because, you know, you think everything's all peachy and stuff, and then next thing you know, I think what it is people always think the grass is greener on the other side, you know. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. So here's the thing, like, what if it's not? How is that agent ever gonna come back and say, Jack, I made a mistake?
Right. Sorry.
Right.
Can I come back?
And so would I ever hire that person back? I can't believe another word she ever would say to me. Now, obviously, I'm not going to mention her name, but I guess that's just not how I would do business. So that happens. Things like that happen, and it hurts your feelings. But you gotta, you know, kind of move on from that. You have to understand that agents come and go, and you have to always be hiring new agents if you're going to run a successful brokerage.
And I guess at the end of the day, you got to realize that's business, right?
Yeah, it's what it is. You know, hopefully she flies off to another agency and does well. But you know, who knows? I would have liked to have her just say, Jack, this isn't for me. And then I could have said, oh, okay, no problem. Is there something I could have done better? I would have loved to have learned from that.
Right, because that helps you out. Like, what could you have done differently, you know, to salvage that relationship? You know, maybe
I didn't even, and bad on me, my mistake. I didn't even know there was any problem.
Right,
and I
think that's a generational thing. That's definitely got to be a generational thing, you know.
At least it wasn't a Post-it. It was an email.
There you go. It's like a bad breakup, right? Shooting you a text rather than tell you to your face. How often should a broker be checking in on their agents and like paperwork and transactions, stuff like that? You know, because I struggle with, you know, wanting to, you know, be on top of everything, and I don't want to hound agents and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think there's two categories. One is, how do you hound your agents to get more business? That's one. And two would be, how do you follow through during a transaction? So hounding my agents to get more business, I don't do it. So if you're here and you're not eager to do business, then I don't know why you're here.
Right.
So I do not call up my agents and say, how many phone calls are you having this week? What's going on with your mail? Or I don't do that.
Right.
At all.
I don't. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like you get out what you put in, you know, and you shouldn't be relying, I guess, on the agents to put in work. And you should that's why you should do your own deals, like you were saying earlier. So I don't agree with like putting pressure on anybody, like, oh, you have to call X amount of expired listings and so on and so forth.
We've never had a meeting of all of the agents together, even on Zoom or anything like. Never done that.
Really? Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, and I wonder if people, would even like that. I came from an office that had a lot of agents. Same thing. Never any meetings, nothing like that. But
For a
I know,
lot of people, that's a real detriment. They don't like it. They like the community of working with the other agents.
right.
To them, that's something that's a value added.
Hmm.
To me, it's not.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's just going to come down to what you think.
So, but it also means that I'm looking to recruit people that don't need to be have their hands held.
Right.
I don't have time for that. So
Yeah.
if you want to have me hold your hand every step of the way, no, I'm looking for somebody that doesn't want their hand held.
Right.
That will
I mean,
that will do things legally, but doesn't need me looking over their shoulder as a crutch.
Right. And that was actually one of my big things starting Waypoint was, should I focus on experienced agents? I mean, that would be easier. Or should I focus on newer agents that are looking for a place? But then like you said, you kind of have to hold their hand. But what I like about the new recruiting new agents is you kind of get to mold them into how you want things done. You can shape them and, tell them the right thing to do,
Now, on the
rather
other
than,
hand,
pick somebody up with bad habits.
Once they've got a hook on the a fish on the line, so to speak, they're writing up an offer or they're preparing for a listing agreement, then I'm all in. So when that happens, like that's where I want to be spending my value added time, consulting with them on how to write up that offer, how to pitch the listing agreement, whatever it happens to be. Or as the process goes along, like, okay, this is the home inspection. What are we going to do? Have you ordered the fire inspection? Then I'm all over it, like crazy.
Right.
And that way I make sure it's done right, but
Mhm.
also I'm teaching them how to do it right. And the more time, after 3 or 4 or 5 of those, they call me less often.
Right. Yeah. And I've spoken to agents that are just getting their license or, waiting to take the test. And I tell them, since you're a new agent, I'll sit down with you. I'll go over how to do all the paperwork and stuff like that. What happens when I get a listing. But the thing is, they're not going to really remember that until it's actually time, So I say, when it comes time, you actually get somebody who's looking to buy or looking to list, then you come to me and you say, okay, Seth, how do we do this?
And I think that's one of the traps that you fall into with I don't want to bash any particular agency. So let's just say Caldwell Banker. When you go to one of these big agencies, they've got so many rules and you spent so much time at trainings that you miss why you're there. You're there to get business. That's why you're there, to get business. As a new agent or even as an existing agent, you should be spending, especially as a new agent, like 95% of your time getting business. If you don't know how to fill out the form, you'll figure that out later because you'll call Seth, your broker, and Seth will teach you how to fill out the form. Seth probably made a video that tells you how to do it anyways. But 95% of your time should be focused on how to get business.
Right.
Yeah. And that's it. And like I was saying earlier, we live in an extraordinary time where you can build a community around whatever you're interested in and then have the permission to ask them for business, whether it's if you want to do news in Fall River, you can do news in Fall River. Or if you want to build a newsletter around surfers in Wellfleet or rap music in Alston, which have nothing to do with real estate. But once you're known by this community of 200, 300, 400, 500 people, and they really like you, you then have the opportunity to ask, if you're doing the blog about rap music in Alston, Brighton, whatever, or wherever music in Alston, Brighton, you can then somewhere in your blog or your videos about, hey, by the way, if you like our blog on music and you need an apartment, I'll hook you up.
Right.
Or you can ask them, hey, surfers, do you know anybody that's buying or selling in the next 30 to 90 days? And they're going to want to do business with you at that point.
Right. Absolutely. So I think this is the last question I had, regarding some etiquette, right? Is it okay for a broker to attend, or an agent, I guess, to attend an open house of a competing office to, one, maybe see how they're doing things, or two, to simply establish a professional connection so that you might be able to work with them in the future in some capacity?
In other words, to recruit them for your office.
Perhaps, or, maybe a referral, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, probably not a referral, because you're probably going to open houses in your somewhat near geographic area.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're going to an open house, and as long as you're fully disclosing that you're a broker, so, Agent Amy is running the open house, and you walk in and you say, hey, I'm Seth, the broker from Waypoint, and great listing you have here. Here's my card. Do you mind if I look around? I think that's fine. Remember, by doing that, you're also educating yourself on the market, which is never a bad idea. And if you're now connecting with Agent Amy, and then, you're able to recruit her long-term, I think that's fine. If you're going to open houses and you're saying point blank, hey, Amy, why don't you come over and work for us? I don't think that's good.
Yeah, I don't think that would fly. You never know what somebody's situation is. Maybe they're looking for a place, but yeah, I just didn't know as far as like the how that would look. I mean, as far as you go just popping in and, like you said, hey, you want to come work for me? I don't know if there's rules against that.
I don't think there's a rule against that, but if you did it to one of my agents at their open house, that would not be a good idea.
I would never, no. Just curious, the thought popped in my head because, as far as recruiting agents, there's a lot of different methods.
Getting back to working at scale, what I think would be better would be to, instead of going to one open house, which is time consuming, you could comment on every agent's post that has an open house this weekend in Fall River.
Right.
You could just go on Instagram and say, hey, Amy, I hope you have a great open house.
Absolutely.
And that's 30 seconds. And you've made the same connection that you probably would have made if you went to her open house.
Yeah. Well, Jack, I appreciate you answering all my questions. I know I had a lot, and I probably have a lot more to come in the future. So
I had a great time.
Me too. And you've been super helpful. So I appreciate you and your time and the opportunity. So
thanks, Seth. Go get him.